In the audiobook summary of I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World by Milan Kordestani, we are warmly invited into a thoughtful conversation about how to speak, listen, and understand each other better in today's world. This book gently guides us through the art of communication, reminding us that respectful dialogue is still possible, even when we disagree. Isn't it refreshing to imagine conversations where understanding comes before judgment? Kordestani begins by acknowledging something many of us feel: the world can often seem divided, and it's easy to lose hope when conversations become arguments. However, instead of being discouraged, he asks a simple but powerful question: what if we could learn to talk in ways that bring people closer instead of pushing them apart? This question is the heartbeat of the audiobook summary, and it sets the tone for a journey into civil discourse. The introduction lays a foundation for understanding why respectful communication matters. It isn't just about being polite, it's about truly connecting with others, even if they have different views. Kordestani explains that civil discourse isn't about winning debates or proving who is right. It's about listening with curiosity, asking honest questions, and sharing ideas in a way that invites growth. Isn't it more meaningful to connect through kindness than to compete through conflict? He encourages us to see every conversation as an opportunity to build bridges. When we listen with empathy and speak with clarity, we not only strengthen our relationships, we also help create a world where people feel seen and heard. Doesn't that sound like something we all need a little more of? In this audiobook summary, the author gently reminds us that it's okay to disagree, as long as we do it respectfully. Civil discourse doesn't mean avoiding difficult topics. It means approaching them with an open heart and a willingness to learn. Kordestani invites us to ask ourselves, are we speaking to understand, or just to be heard? What makes the introduction so powerful is its hopeful tone. Rather than focusing on what's going wrong in conversations today, the audiobook summary invites us to imagine what could go right. What if we chose to listen first? What if we asked questions without judgment? What if our conversations could plant seeds of kindness, even in disagreement? By the end of the introduction, listeners are left feeling hopeful and empowered. Civil discourse is not a lost art, it's a skill we can all practice. And the best part? It starts with simple changes in how we speak and listen. Don't we all deserve conversations where everyone feels valued? In a world that often feels noisy and divided, I'm Just Saying begins with a quiet but powerful message: respectful conversation is possible, and it begins with you. Part 1: The Foundations, Reflection. In the audiobook summary of I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World by Milan Kordestani, Part 1 titled The Foundations, Reflection encourages us to slow down and look inward before we speak outward. This thoughtful beginning reminds us that healthy, respectful conversations often start with self-awareness. Have we taken the time to understand our own beliefs and feelings before we try to share them with others? Reflection, as explained in this part of the audiobook summary, is about being honest with ourselves. Kordestani invites listeners to pause and consider, why do we believe what we believe? What experiences have shaped our views? When we reflect deeply, we begin to see that our perspectives are not just ideas, we carry them with emotion, memory, and meaning. Isn't it true that understanding ourselves helps us better understand others too? The author gently points out that much of today's conflict in conversation comes from a lack of reflection. Sometimes, we react instead of respond. We speak from frustration rather than from thoughtfulness. But what if we gave ourselves time to think? What if we asked ourselves questions like, what am I really trying to say, or is there a better way to express this? Wouldn't our conversations be more peaceful and purposeful? Kordestani highlights that reflection doesn't make us weaker, it actually makes us stronger communicators. When we take time to know ourselves, we build confidence in what we stand for. At the same time, we also grow more open to hearing others, even when they see the world differently. Isn't that the kind of strength we all admire? This part of the audiobook summary also encourages us to recognize the difference between reacting and responding. A reaction might come from anger or fear, while a response comes from understanding. By learning to respond, we can approach disagreements with calmness and compassion. Isn't it wonderful to think that we can disagree without feeling divided? Another powerful insight from this section is the idea of intention. When we enter a conversation, what is our goal? Is it to understand or just to be understood? Is it to connect or to convince? Reflection helps us set healthy intentions so our words can lift others up instead of bringing them down. In the end, part 1 of the audiobook summary teaches us that true communication begins with reflection. It's like preparing the soil before planting seeds. If we nurture kindness, patience, and honesty within ourselves, our words will carry those same qualities. Isn't that the kind of communication we want in our homes, communities, and even online? By focusing on reflection as the first step toward civil discourse, Kordestani reminds us that every great conversation starts with a thoughtful pause. And perhaps that small pause is where big changes begin. Intention. In the audiobook summary of I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World by Milan Kordestani, the concept of intention is explored as a critical factor in fostering meaningful and respectful conversations. Have you ever wondered why some discussions feel productive and others seem to only lead to frustration? Kordestani offers the insight that our intentions often shape the outcome of our interactions more than we realize. The idea behind intention is simple yet powerful. What is the goal behind your words? Are you speaking to truly connect with the other person, or is your aim to be heard, to prove a point, or to win the conversation? Kordestani encourages us to pause and reflect on this question before entering any discussion. By being clear about our intentions, we set the stage for more constructive and civil discourse. Wouldn't it be helpful if we all approached conversations with the aim of understanding rather than just trying to convince others of our viewpoint? Kordestani reminds us that when we enter a conversation with a positive and open intention, seeking understanding rather than conflict, we increase the likelihood of a productive outcome. Imagine a world where we are all more focused on listening than arguing. Isn't it wonderful to think that most disagreements can be softened by simply asking ourselves, what am I hoping to achieve in this conversation? If we enter with the intention to hear and respect others, wouldn't the conversation shift in a more positive direction? The audiobook summary also discusses how intentions can be misinterpreted. Sometimes, we may think we are coming from a place of kindness or understanding, but if we haven't clearly communicated that intention, it can be lost. Kordestani highlights the importance of being transparent and clear about our intentions. Have you ever experienced a conversation where your words were misunderstood? Perhaps it wasn't the message itself, but the intention behind it that needed clarification. This reminder can help all of us ensure our conversations are more productive and harmonious. Another valuable lesson from this section is the idea that our intention should not be based on ego or the desire for validation. Instead, true communication comes from a desire to connect, grow, and learn. When our focus is on understanding the other person's perspective and sharing our own with respect, doesn't that feel more fulfilling than arguing for the sake of being right? The concept of intention also extends beyond our words. How often do we get caught up in the pressure of needing to be right? Kordestani encourages us to ask ourselves, what is my true intention here? Do I want to connect, or am I trying to be the one who is correct? Being aware of this helps us check our motives before we speak, ensuring that we are contributing positively to the conversation. In the end, Kordestani reminds us that having a clear, positive intention can help us transform even difficult or divisive conversations into opportunities for growth and understanding. By shifting our focus from being right to being heard, we open the door to more meaningful and civil discourse. Isn't it time to reconsider how we approach our interactions with others, especially in a world that often feels more divided than ever? Wouldn't it be great to approach every conversation with the goal of understanding, respect, and empathy? Tone. In the audiobook summary of I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World by Milan Kordestani, the topic of tone is explored with warmth and clarity. Have you ever said something with good intentions, only to realize the other person didn't receive it that way? The way we speak, our tone, can make a big difference in how our message is heard and felt. In this part of the book, Kordestani gently guides us through understanding how tone shapes the atmosphere of every conversation we have. Tone isn't just about the volume or pitch of our voice. It includes our attitude, energy, and the emotions behind our words. Even the most well-meaning message can come across as cold or harsh if the tone isn't right. This audiobook summary helps us recognize how important it is to match our words with a tone that invites dialogue, not conflict. Can you think of a time when someone's kind tone made a difficult conversation easier? That's the power of speaking with care and calmness. Kordestani also points out that tone is something we can control, even if emotions are high. Isn't it amazing that just taking a breath and softening our voice can help ease tension? This doesn't mean hiding our feelings, it means expressing them in a way that encourages connection. A peaceful tone can show respect, even when we strongly disagree. Doesn't that sound like something our world could use more of? This audiobook summary also emphasizes the importance of being mindful of tone in written communication. Whether it's a text, an email, or a comment online, the tone behind our words can be misunderstood. Without body language or facial expressions, people may read messages differently than we intended. That's why choosing thoughtful, gentle words, and even adding a kind emoji, can make a big difference. Isn't it thoughtful to ask, how will this sound to someone else? Kordestani invites us to become more self-aware. Are we using a tone that invites people in, or one that pushes them away? He reminds us that we all make mistakes, and tone can slip sometimes. But when we notice and adjust, we show growth. And that's something to be proud of, right? The audiobook summary also encourages us to listen not just to what others say, but how they say it. When someone's tone seems frustrated or upset, can we respond with patience and empathy? Often, people just want to feel heard. If we meet their tone with kindness rather than matching their frustration, don't you think that can help calm the situation? In the end, Kordestani's reflections on tone teach us a beautiful truth: the way we say something can be just as important as what we say. With kindness, understanding, and a gentle tone, we can create conversations that heal, rather than divide. Isn't it wonderful to know that such a small shift in how we speak can bring such positive change to the world around us? Trust. In the audiobook summary of I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World by Milan Kordestani, trust takes center stage as one of the most essential elements for creating respectful, thoughtful, and open communication. When we look around, do we see trust in the way people speak with one another? Do we feel it in conversations with those who may think differently from us? Kordestani gently guides us to understand that trust is not only possible, it's something we can build, nurture, and share. Trust is like the foundation of a strong home. Without it, everything else can feel uncertain. But when we build trust through honest words, kind actions, and consistent behavior, we create a safe space where people feel they can truly be themselves. Doesn't that sound like something we all want, a space where we're heard, seen, and valued? One of the key points in this audiobook summary is that trust isn't given automatically, it's earned over time. We build it by listening with care, speaking with kindness, and showing people that they matter. Kordestani encourages us to ask, are we showing up with compassion? Are we willing to understand before jumping to judgment? Another beautiful idea is that trust allows conversations to go deeper. When people feel safe, they're more likely to share their true thoughts and feelings. Isn't that the kind of connection we need more of in today's world? We don't have to agree with everything. Someone says, but when we show them respect, we open a door to understanding and growth. The audiobook summary also reminds us that broken trust can be repaired. It may take time, effort, and patience, but it's not impossible. Through honest reflection, sincere apologies, and a willingness to listen, we can rebuild what was lost. How encouraging is that? Kordestani highlights that trust also begins with trusting ourselves. When we feel confident in our values and stay grounded in kindness, we are better prepared to navigate difficult conversations. Have you ever felt more at peace simply by believing in your own good intentions? That's the strength of self-trust, and it can inspire others too. Finally, the audiobook summary emphasizes that trust can be contagious. When we act with integrity, others notice. Our tone, our words, and our consistency all send a message, one that says, "You're safe here. I'm listening." Imagine how the world might shift if more of us spoke from that place of care. In summary, Milan Kordestani's message about trust is full of hope. It reminds us that even in divided times, we can create bridges through openness, patience, and kindness. Trust is not a rare treasure, it's a gift we can offer every day through the way we speak, listen, and treat others. So, why not be the one who begins with trust? Part 2. In Practice, Active Listening. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani highlights the power of active listening as a simple but transformative skill. Have you ever had a conversation where you felt someone truly heard you? That's the heart of active listening. It's about more than just hearing words. It's about truly understanding and being present with another person. In this section of the audiobook, Kordestani helps us see that good communication is not just about speaking well, it's also about listening well. He reminds us that in a fast-paced, opinion-filled world, many people are quick to talk, but fewer take the time to listen deeply. So how can we change that? Kordestani explains that active listening means giving your full attention to the other person, without interrupting or planning your response while they speak. Doesn't that sound refreshing? It's about staying open, patient, and curious. It means listening not just with your ears, but with your eyes, heart, and mind. The audiobook encourages us to pause and reflect. Do we really listen when others speak? Are we open to their thoughts, even if they're different from our own? Active listening invites us to slow down and create space for connection. It shows the other person that their voice matters. Another helpful part of this chapter is the idea that listening doesn't mean agreeing, it means understanding. What a comforting thought, right? You don't have to change your views to listen respectfully. By practicing this kind of listening, we help build trust and reduce tension, even in tough conversations. Kordestani also shares practical ways to become a better listener. For example, nodding or saying "I see" can let someone know you're with them. Asking gentle follow-up questions like "Can you tell me more?" or "Why is that important to you?" keeps the dialogue open and shows that you care. Aren't those simple steps we can all try? He also reminds us that body language plays a big role in listening. Facing someone, putting away distractions, and making eye contact are powerful ways to show someone they are valued. Can small changes like these really make a big difference? According to Kordestani, yes, they can lead to more peaceful, thoughtful conversations. Lastly, the audiobook gently invites us to practice active listening in everyday life, not just in debates or deep talks, but with friends, family, co-workers, and even strangers. What would happen if more people felt truly heard each day? Would the world feel a little kinder? In summary, active listening is a gift we can give to others and to ourselves. It helps create space for understanding, respect, and compassion. Through this chapter, Milan Kordestani reminds us that one of the most powerful things we can do is simply listen, with love, patience, and presence. Isn't that a beautiful way to connect in a divided world? Part 2. In Practice, Being Attentive. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani brings our attention to something very important but often overlooked: being attentive. Isn't it amazing how much better our relationships and conversations could be if we were just a little more present with each other? In this chapter, Kordestani explores how being attentive is more than just looking at someone while they speak. It's about being fully present in the moment, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Have you ever been in a conversation and noticed the other person was distracted by their phone or their thoughts? Didn't it feel like your words didn't matter much? This chapter encourages us to flip that experience and give others the gift of our full attention. Kordestani shares how attentiveness can help us understand not just what someone is saying, but also how they are feeling. He encourages us to notice small things like tone of voice, facial expressions, and pauses, because they often reveal more than words alone. Isn't it interesting how a simple pause or a soft tone can carry so much emotion? The book gently reminds us that being attentive requires us to slow down. In today's busy world, isn't that a refreshing thought? Slowing down allows us to respond with care instead of reacting quickly. When we are attentive, we create a space where understanding and kindness can grow. Kordestani also makes a beautiful point: being attentive shows people that they are important. It's a quiet way of saying, "You matter to me." And who doesn't want to feel that? Whether we're talking to a friend, a co-worker, or even someone we disagree with, attentiveness builds trust and makes the other person feel respected. He gives helpful tips too. For example, putting away distractions, maintaining eye contact, and being curious instead of judgmental. Questions like, "What do you mean by that?" or "Can you help me understand better?" show attentiveness and invite a deeper conversation. One of the most encouraging ideas in this chapter is that we don't have to be perfect. Being attentive is a skill we can all grow. Even if we've struggled with it before, we can always start fresh with the next conversation. Isn't it uplifting to know that change starts with small steps? Kordestani also touches on the value of being attentive to ourselves. Listening to our own emotions, thoughts, and needs helps us show up better for others. It's a gentle reminder that civil discourse begins inside, within a calm and self-awareness. In the end, being attentive is not just about communication, it's about connection. When we are present, patient, and focused, we invite others to do the same. And from that place, real understanding and harmony can grow. Couldn't the world use a little more of that? Maintaining focus. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani introduces maintaining focus as a powerful tool for building better conversations and stronger relationships. In a world full of distractions and strong opinions, isn't it amazing to think about how much clarity and connection we can create just by staying focused? This part of the audiobook reminds us that when we are having a conversation, especially about something important or emotional, our focus is one of the greatest gifts we can offer. But what does staying focused really mean? It's more than just concentrating on the words someone is saying. It's about staying present with the person in front of us, listening with care, and keeping the goal of understanding in mind. Isn't that a refreshing way to think about communication? Kordestani shares that focus helps us avoid misunderstandings and keeps conversations from going off track. Have you ever found yourself getting pulled into an argument that started with one topic but quickly turned into something else? That often happens when focus is lost. By gently guiding the conversation back to the topic, we show respect and make it easier to find common ground. One helpful point the author makes is that maintaining focus doesn't mean ignoring emotions or silencing different views. It means allowing space for both clarity and compassion. We can stay focused on the heart of the conversation while still being kind and open. Isn't it possible to be clear and caring at the same time? Kordestani also offers practical suggestions, like taking a deep breath before responding, repeating key points to stay on topic, and setting a clear purpose for the discussion. These small habits can help us stay grounded even when emotions rise. After all, staying calm and focused helps both people feel safe and heard. Another beautiful idea shared in this chapter is that focus helps us go deeper instead of wider. Instead of jumping from topic to topic or trying to win an argument, we can explore the issue more thoughtfully. Don't you think deeper conversations can lead to greater understanding and real growth? This chapter also reminds us that focusing on the why behind someone's opinion can be more powerful than arguing about the what. When we focus on understanding the values, fears, or hopes beneath someone's words, we connect as human beings. And isn't that what civil discourse is really about? Lastly, Kordestani encourages us to focus on the outcome we want. Do we want peace, clarity, or connection? By keeping that intention in mind, we can guide the conversation in a more positive direction. Isn't that a simple but meaningful way to build a better world? Maintaining focus is a gentle but powerful reminder that every conversation is a chance to build bridges instead of walls. With attention, purpose, and kindness, we can turn even difficult discussions into moments of understanding. Isn't that something worth practicing every day? Part 3: Overcoming Challenges, Seeking Common Ground. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani explores one of the most important and uplifting ideas in communication: seeking common ground. Isn't it inspiring to think that, even in the middle of disagreements, there is always something we share? This chapter invites us to look beyond our differences and focus on what connects us. Whether it's shared values, hopes for the future, or simply the desire to be understood, common ground exists, even when it feels hard to see. Can you imagine how much more peaceful the world would be if we all searched for that connection? Kordestani gently guides the listener through the process of finding unity without giving up who we are. He explains that seeking common ground doesn't mean agreeing on everything. It means choosing to care, to listen, and to understand where someone else is coming from. Isn't that a powerful act of kindness? The audiobook highlights practical steps to help in this journey. For example, one idea is to listen for the why behind someone's opinion. Why do they care so much about this issue? What life experience shaped their view? Asking these questions with an open heart can lead to surprising and meaningful discoveries. Another helpful practice is to use affirming language like "I see your point," or "that makes sense from your view." These simple phrases can soften tension and show respect. And don't we all feel more open when we're respected? Kordestani also shares stories that show how people with very different views found ways to connect. From neighbors in political disagreements to co-workers with clashing values, these examples are full of hope. They remind us that peace is always possible, especially when we look for the things we have in common. One of the most encouraging messages in this chapter is that finding common ground helps us grow. When we stretch our minds and hearts to understand someone else, we become wiser, kinder, and more thoughtful. Isn't that something we all want? This part of the audiobook also reminds us that seeking unity isn't about winning or losing. It's about building trust and making room for others at the table. It's about saying, "Let's walk together, even if our steps look different." Even when the world feels divided, there is always hope for unity. With patience, humility, and a little curiosity, we can begin to see the good in each other. Doesn't that sound like the kind of world we all want to live in? In the end, seeking common ground is more than a strategy, it's a mindset. It's a way of seeing others with compassion and choosing connection over conflict. With this beautiful lesson, Milan Kordestani gives us a gentle and powerful reminder: the path to peace often begins with a single question: what do we have in common? Expecting conflict in perspectives. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani thoughtfully addresses a truth we all face but sometimes struggle with: people see the world differently. In the chapter titled Expecting Conflict in Perspectives, he gently helps us understand that it's not only okay to disagree, but it's also natural. Doesn't it make sense that with so many life experiences, upbringings, and beliefs, we might not always think the same way? Kordestani encourages us to expect differences, not as a threat, but as an opportunity. When we go into a conversation already knowing that someone might have a different opinion, we're less likely to feel upset or surprised. Instead, we can become more curious. What shaped their point of view? What might I learn from this exchange? This chapter highlights the idea that conflict isn't the same as fighting. Conflict, in its healthy form, is simply the presence of diverse opinions. And diversity in thought, just like in nature, brings growth. Isn't that a hopeful way to think about it? The audiobook reminds us that expecting conflict helps prepare our hearts and minds. If we walk into a conversation ready to listen and stay calm, even when we disagree, we're already taking the first step toward peace. Wouldn't it be amazing if more conversations started with calm expectations instead of tension? Kordestani also shares tools for responding gracefully to disagreement. He talks about staying grounded, asking thoughtful questions, and keeping our tone kind. Even when we feel strongly, our voice can remain soft and respectful. Isn't that a powerful skill to build? Importantly, this chapter reassures us that we don't need to win every discussion. Instead, we can focus on understanding each other. When both sides feel heard, even a conversation with different views can end with mutual respect. Have you ever walked away from a disagreement feeling closer to someone? That's the beauty of civil discourse. By expecting conflict in perspectives, we also build emotional strength. We learn not to take differences personally. We learn to hold space for others and still stand strong in our beliefs. That kind of balance is something we can all grow into, step by step. Kordestani's approach is warm and wise. He doesn't tell us to avoid hard conversations. He simply invites us to meet them with compassion and confidence. Conflict becomes less scary when we expect it and prepare for it with kindness, doesn't it? In a world where arguments can often turn loud or painful, this chapter offers a peaceful path. It reminds us that civil discourse is not about agreeing on everything, it's about staying kind even when we don't. And that is something truly beautiful to strive for. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation where views don't match, remember, expecting conflict isn't giving up, it's being ready to connect through it. What kind of peace could you create just by expecting understanding instead of opposition? Avoiding poor discourse. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani offers readers a refreshing and hopeful way to talk with one another, especially when the topics are tough. In the chapter titled Avoiding Poor Discourse, he gently explores what often goes wrong in conversations and how we can make them better, without judgment or blame. Isn't that something we all can use more of? Kordestani reminds us that poor discourse doesn't always mean shouting or anger, it can also be about not listening, interrupting, or assuming the worst in others. Haven't we all been in a conversation where someone was already forming a reply before we even finished speaking? This chapter encourages us to recognize those habits and gently shift away from them. Instead of focusing on who's right or wrong, Kordestani invites us to ask, am I truly listening, or is my tone helping or hurting the conversation? These simple questions can help us pause, reflect, and return to the conversation with more care. What if more of our discussion started with kindness and curiosity? Another key idea in this chapter is avoiding the temptation to label or dismiss people. When we use words that put others down or group them unfairly, it shuts the door on understanding. But what if, instead, we chose words that open hearts and minds? Kordestani doesn't just point out what's wrong, he offers gentle, practical tips for improvement. He talks about slowing down, breathing deeply, and choosing words that uplift rather than tear down. Doesn't that feel like a wise and peaceful way forward? He also highlights the importance of humility. Admitting we don't know everything or that we might learn from others is not weakness, it's strength. Imagine how different our world would be if we all spoke from a place of learning rather than defending. What makes this chapter so uplifting is that it's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow. Kordestani believes that better conversations lead to better relationships and a more peaceful world. And isn't that something we all hope for? By avoiding poor discourse, we're not just avoiding arguments, we're building bridges. We're saying, I respect you enough to speak kindly, to listen well, and to understand where you're coming from. That simple choice can change everything. In a time when many feel disconnected, this chapter reminds us that healing begins with how we talk to each other. With patience, honesty, and care, even the most difficult conversations can lead to something beautiful. So the next time a conversation feels tense or tricky, take a deep breath and ask, how can I bring more peace into this moment? The answer, Kordestani shows us, is often found in the small, kind choices we make in every word we say. Isn't that a hopeful message to carry forward? Conclusion. In I'm Just Saying, A Guide to Maintaining Civil Discourse in an Increasingly Divided World, Milan Kordestani offers a thoughtful and uplifting perspective on how we can navigate the complex and often challenging world of conversation. In the conclusion of this guide, Kordestani emphasizes the importance of civil discourse as the key to bridging divides and creating meaningful connections, even when differences seem vast. Isn't that a refreshing idea in today's polarized world? What makes Kordestani's approach so approachable is his belief that maintaining respectful and open conversations isn't about winning or losing, it's about understanding and learning from one another. How many times have we gotten caught up in being right instead of truly listening to the other person's point of view? This guide encourages us to set aside the need to be right and instead focus on building mutual respect. Wouldn't the world be a better place if we all listened more and judged less? Kordestani highlights that conversations, especially difficult ones, can be powerful tools for growth. The conclusion also suggests that civil discourse is an ongoing practice, a skill we can all improve with time and effort. Just as we practice other life skills, practicing open, respectful communication can lead to more positive outcomes in both our personal and professional lives. Can you imagine how much more peaceful interactions might be if we all dedicated ourselves to improving this practice? Furthermore, Kordestani gently reminds us that our tone, intention, and focus play pivotal roles in shaping how conversations unfold. By staying calm and focused, we can reduce misunderstandings and foster better relationships, even when opinions differ. Isn't it empowering to realize that the way we communicate is often within our control? One of the most profound takeaways from the conclusion is Kordestani's call for empathy. In a world where divisions can sometimes seem insurmountable, empathy allows us to see others as they are, not as we want them to be. Wouldn't it be amazing if we approached every conversation with the intent to understand rather than to be understood? Ultimately, the conclusion of this book encourages us to view every conversation as an opportunity. An opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect, rather than to win an argument. In a time when so many people feel disconnected, could adopting these simple yet powerful principles help bring us closer together? So, as we finish reading I'm Just Saying, let's take this message to heart. Let's strive for conversations that reflect our highest values of respect, kindness, and understanding. By doing so, we not only enrich our own lives but contribute to a more civil and compassionate world. Wouldn't that be a world worth creating? Kordestani's guide serves as a reminder that, with patience and mindfulness, we can all be part of the solution to the division around us. After all, good conversation has the power to heal, to connect, and to make a lasting difference in the way we relate to one another.